Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let me make sure I am live. Let me check my sound like I always do in the beginning, or at least I try to make a habit of doing it. I'm seeing myself moving and shaking, and my sound is at 100. Absolutely awesome. The world is good. Guys, before I start, I want to thank all of my patrons. I want to thank all the people who give super cash and who share my vids and all that good stuff. You guys are immensely appreciated. I've expanded this channel. At least my goal is to expand the channel to something that's a little bit more like a part-time job in this way. So I've been trying to stay focused on getting the content out, getting the live videos out, and focus on the patron thing, which means live phone calls. So I think I'm going to try to do that tonight to see how that goes as a trial run. But you guys will appreciate it. And in many respects, you guys are the reason why I can do it. So I can have these opinions. I can bitch and moan all I want. If there's nobody there to listen to you bitch and moan, then it's like, what's the point? So I was revving up to do a video based on a bombshell. Well, it's not a bombshell. Maybe a bombshell. Saying that the Obama administration is somehow linked to the McCabe drama and the Strikes drama, the email issues, with new text messages. The text messages essentially make, these salacious lovers who are, they're having this romantic entanglement away from his wife, saying these amazing things about Donald Trump. He's like calling him a fucking idiot and all this other stuff. And being instrumental in both cases. One of the things that they mentioned saying Obama wanted to hear everything that was going on. Now, the Republicans have a particular view of this, and I'm going to do another video asking whether their view is valid. But as I was doing that, I felt something welling up in me, something bugging me. Like looking at some of the networks, listen to the Russiagate stuff, listen to Democrats here, make this Russiagate argument. And I know some lefty media outlets have been on board with the Russian narrative. I understand. There are a lot of stuff that lefty media outlets will probably be on the same thing on, meaning agreement on. But there seems to be a sharp division in regards to the Russiagate thing versus people who don't necessarily believe in the Russiagate thing, who thinks this is a conspiracy theory because we asked the basic question, two basic questions. Do Democrats have an impetus to make this larger than what it is? Meaning, do they have any kind of political reason to do so? The answer is, of course, yes. Do they, at least, because just because you have a political motive doesn't necessarily mean what you're saying is wrong. Have they been able to demonstrate that Russia had influence in our election? That answer is no. That answer is no. They've been shredded making this argument about Russia interference and collusion and all this other stuff, one person after the next. The interview I just did of the lead Democrat in intelligence, Schiff, getting shredded by Tucker Carlson, just asking one basic question. Do you have evidence? Can you look into the camera and say, yes, Vladimir Putin did this, and in no way could he do that? The guy who wrote the book Collusion, getting shredded on Real News Network. Again, wrote the book on collusion, in no way can make the case of collusion between Trump and Russia. It could not even make the argument or make it stick that Vladimir Putin had anything to do with it. And again, I would make the case that there's more evidence going with this idea that it was a leak and not a hack. Mainstream media is screaming about this idea of a leak. Of a hack as opposed to a leak, and completely ignored the contradictory evidence saying that this was a leak and not a hack. They've invested in this narrative. Whether they've invested in this narrative because they hate Donald Trump, whether they've invested in this narrative because of this Trump-Russia thing puts asses in seats, in which case it puts, dollars in their pockets. Several of the people who are in media said that Donald Trump may be bad for the country, but he is fucking awesome for our wallets. That didn't change after the election. It just took a different form. Instead of having an empty stadium of Donald Trump or podium, they have Donald Trump every day, all day, Trump and Russia. The president of the United States colluded with a foreign power, and then colluding with that foreign power somehow changed the outcome of the election. Aren't you intrigued? Stay intrigued. We have one new development each day. None of the developments make it a real case to make that stick. And yet we have a development every day. Look, whether Russia did something to influence the election, I have no idea. I am immensely doubtful of this. even if what they're saying is true in regards to their narrative of events, which I don't take as being true at all. But even if it's true, you have to ask a secondary question of what was the impact? We influence elections all the time. What was the impact? Now, sidestepping that for a moment, because I don't want to dwell too much on that one. It's what I want to get on is, look, one of the main things of the left is this, what's the word I'm looking for? This, not liking power centers. Like, not liking this thing that would inhibit ideas of freedom. Meaning, I want to be left to my devices. I don't want to be spied on. I want to be left to my devices. I want to be free. Now, yes, this hits somewhat of a libertarian idea, but lefties and libertarians, 50% of the stuff they agree on. And in this, we should be in full agreement. I don't care what your network is. If you're a lefty network, we should be in full agreement on this one. This idea of mass spying. Now, Edward Snowden, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, revealed that the United States was spying on everybody. Spying on everybody. Creating installations in order to keep all of the information from our communications and external communications. Now, whatever excuse they want to use, saying, well, we never use this, there have been cases where agents would have used it to look on their ex-girlfriends or something to that effect. There have been cases where the information that they pull from this FISA warrants, or not even the FISA warrants, just this mass surveillance given to other things beyond this idea of terror, meaning this is not just for looking for terrorism. They've used this in other cases. Now imagine the difficulty and ridiculousness, and I would even argue illegality, of information being pulled from some secret court and passed to some kind of criminal law enforcement agency. Fuck your Fourth Amendment rights. Fuck that. Who needs rights? Who needs rights? What we know, what we absolutely know is a flat fact, is that, and not adding anything to it, meaning not adding any intention or anything else to it, just what we know. They got a FISA warrant on Donald Trump based on a memo, not just a memo, dossier. The dossier was created by the Hillary camp. Essentially, they paid somebody to create a dossier. There was nothing to back it up. Comey himself called it salacious and unverifiable. And yet, this was enough to get them to spy on somebody in the camp of the President of the United States, or the person who's running for President of the United States. Now, the argument that Democrats make was, wait a minute, they were able to get this FISA warrant multiple times. I mean, clearly, how were they able to get this FISA warrant multiple times if there wasn't something there for the FISA warrant? The point is that they didn't tell. And there are two main points on this, by the way. The first point is, you use unverifiable information that came from the opponent of a political camp. Now, you yourself are working in a particular political context, meaning you have the President of the United States, who's Barack Hussein Obama. You have Attorney General being Loretta Lynch. Loretta Lynch clearly understands the intentions of Obama in this. She knows what Obama wants, whether that's not investigating Hillary Clinton in a degree or the way they would typically investigate somebody if that person was not named Hillary Clinton. And two, we need to look into this Trump stuff. We need to look into this Trump stuff. And we're going to use the pretext of an unverifiable, salacious and unverifiable dossier to do so. They take this to a FISA court. And the thing with a FISA court is, it's just the agent and the judge. Understand what I'm saying? This is a secret court. And this secret court makes the determination based on what an agent is saying. This particular person who wants to look into your affairs, who wants to ignore your Fourth Amendment rights, this agent is going to a judge. And the judge is listening to that agent because there's nobody else there to whisper in that judge's ear. And the determination that judges makes has nothing to do with you, meaning it has nothing to do with somebody saying, wait a minute, and ask questions in your honor, some kind of public defendant. There is nobody else there. That judge and that agent alone is making a determination of whether or not to investigate you. When did the left get to the point of thinking this was okay? Now, yes, the first point that Republicans make is, well, wait a minute, they should have showed that information. But my second point to this is it wouldn't have mattered. 99.7% of the items that go before that FISA court gets approved. 99.7%. What court do you know of that gets that level of voting in one particular direction? And at which point can we call it a rubber stamp? At 99.8%, can we just call it a rubber stamp? At 99.9%, can we call it perfunctory? The FISA court is purely in place just to make this thing look some level of legitimate. It is not legitimate. And it's amazing to me that the left hasn't been more pissed off about this. Like, they're perfectly okay using this to attack Donald Trump, saying, wait a minute, that FISA court is legit. It put out this thing to investigate Trump. They were investigating Trump for good reasons, etc., 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 Russiagate, all that good stuff. But they never asked the secondary question of, well, wait a minute, how many of these things get approved? With an approval rate of 99.7%, having a warrant on you is not evidence of anything. You can get a warrant on a ham sandwich. If an agent really wanted to investigate a ham sandwich, he can investigate a ham sandwich, and that rubber stamp of a FISA court will likely give it to him. If it's anything based on what we have up to this point in regards to how often it's invoked. When did the left become advocates for the NSA and the CIA? When did that happen? Is that Trump derangement syndrome in action? Meaning, what lefty network looks at this process and thinks to themselves, yes, we're getting Donald Trump, as opposed to, oh my God, these intelligence services are out of fucking control, and at the end of the day, anybody can be at the bad end of one of those investigations. Why do we have Fourth Amendment rights? Why do you think they put that into the Bill of Rights? Do you think it didn't matter? Do you think that at any point in American history that any government that was in power would want the capacity to go into people's houses, to take apart their lives in order to investigate and look into the affairs of those individuals? Certainly, you understand that even back then, they understood that governments had a tendency to want to do those things. Government wants to grow and wants to instigate itself into the life of the individual with this kind of absolute control and legal authority or legal apparatus to do so. They put that there specifically to not allow the government to do that. You understand that, right? Like, it was there as an amendment in one of the early amendments in order to prevent the government itself from being able to intrude into the lives of the individuals of that particular government. Why are you so okay with that being stripped away? Just because it's Donald Trump that is being used against. Look, I'm just making the point that the NSA is not your friend. The CIA is not your friend. This is the same organization that tried to get Martin Luther King to kill himself. We've just passed his birthday. Literally tried to get Martin Luther King to kill himself. This is the same organization that organized coups in the CIA, meaning in Iran and multiple other governments, to overthrow those governments and put in dictators that was more like, or that would play ball with the United States. Understand the organizations that you're, acting as if it's these fucking awesome pillars of virtues. They're not. And you've given them this kind of absolute authority to go into people's lives. Look, I don't like Donald Trump. And I think anybody who's watched my videos for any length of time knows I don't particularly like Donald Trump. I think he's a fucking monster. That being said, I understand that Donald Trump is a progression of the prior presidents. We didn't fall off a cliff. We fell off a cliff a long time ago. What you're believing to be this drastic difference between the two presidents, it's just degrees. It is not a complete rework of the way America functions in the world. It is not a rework of the way things function under normal circumstances. This is a matter of degrees. Trump, as gross as he is, maybe racist, he's also incompetent. He deported less people than Obama did. And yes, Trump is murdering a lot of civilians. Guess what? So did the last president, murdering a lot of civilians. Yes, Trump is gross. He doesn't believe in climate change. But guess what? The last president, even though he took minor steps, he was a god of oil. He was a god of oil. Oil pipelines left and right. I'm trying to make this point to you, that Trump is gross. Republicans are god-awful and horrible. They're terrifying. I can't even say they're on the political spectrum, if we're being honest, at least not the same political spectrum. But they are that way, not because they just became that way. They're that way because they're allowed to be that way in the way that the policy and the public has moved to the right. The Democratic Party, for the most part, has moved further and further to the right. And then it's moving further and further to the right. The Republican Party said, thank you, we'll take some more. They just move further to the right. You understand that you have a Democratic Party that has two components to that party that should not be within the same party. You have the plutocrats, and you have everybody else. The lefties, the progressives, the wayward progressives who still find themselves to be in that particular party, believes, for whatever reason, that they can change the party. The problem, and the thing that they miss, is that the lip service that's being given is being given because it understands that there is a lefty component to the party. The policies that are enacted are done so in order to maximize their profits. In this case, politically. Meaning they want cash from plutocrats. And in order to get that cash from the plutocrats, they're going to toe a particular agenda. That agenda is going to be contrary to what the people on the bottom want. People on the left want. So then you end up with what they call moderates. I will talk a particular way. I will toe a particular line. But at the end of the day, the only thing I'm going to be with you on is identity. The other stuff, I'm with them. They're paying me. They're giving me money. I believe I need this money to get elected. I'm with them. I will talk pretty to you. But at the end of the day, I'm with them. I'm making this point to you as lefties that they are not your friends. They are not on board with you. I understand you don't like Donald Trump. I get it. But the world has not fallen off a cliff. The world had already fallen off a cliff. The Democrat that is usually in office gives you a pretty face on really disgusting policies. You believe that Donald Trump's tone is indicative of some great and vast change. It is not. It is not. It is a walk in a bad direction. We were already going in a bad direction. If you want change, what you need to focus on is a certain level of integrity. That integrity does not go with the wind blows. That integrity stays fixed, somewhat location, in regards to, if I am a lefty, I am not going to just attack Donald Trump using intelligence services that I, under normal circumstances, don't trust in the least. They found an NSA warrant on the President of the United States. Why aren't you bothered by that? Now, you can say, well, there was something to have that warrant on. But when you finally take the next step and say, well, wait a minute, 99.7% of those warrants are approved. The validity of the warrant, or the existence of a warrant, in no way gives it any validity. That's the point I'm getting at. This is not a situation where 40% of warrants are approved and they approved the warrant on Donald Trump and it's more like they might have had some. No! This is the majority of these things get approved. If any random FBI agent comes to your house, he could have a FISA warrant on you. You could say, what do you have on me in order to get a FISA warrant on me? Now, the catch is, he doesn't have that much of anything. It purely depends on what he told the judge and whatever the judge wanted to do or to allow. With 99.7%, the majority of those things, it is just a perfunctory process. Why aren't you bothered by that? That's all I'm getting at. I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I know this is a live one, so I'll probably beat a dead horse a few times. I'm just saying, from a lefty standpoint, that should be a problem. That should be something that you don't necessarily like. And is it possible to do two things at once? Donald Trump is a maniac, but at the same token, we do not like this process by which the United States government can rip away the person's Fourth Amendment rights. You understand that because this exists, there is no such thing as a Fourth Amendment right. It is evaporated. With 99.7%, they can look into anybody's affairs. You have a Stasi in the United States. Don't allow propaganda, freedom, and justice, and all this other stuff to cloud your judgment from the idea that you have a security apparatus that is equivalent to the Stasi. And just for a second point on this, you have 5% of the world's population with 25% of the world's population in your prison. Land of the free, my ass. We have more people in our gulags, in our jails, than they have in China. China has like 3 times our population. Understand what I'm saying? The majority of those people that are put in prison are there for just drug laws. People in cages, human beings in cages, wrecking and destroying their lives because they wanted to smoke a plant or inhale some chemical. We have more people in prison for pot possession than we do for violent crime, by like twice as much. Land of the free, home of the brave. We have a security apparatus that is spying pretty much on anybody and everybody. We have a FISA court that's really not a court, that rubber stamps, taking people apart and destroying lives. Only with the position of the FBI or whatever the agent is as being a justification to do so. And this, I can't be crazy on, I don't think I'm crazy on this. Can the left do two things at once? Can it say that we don't like the fact that this is a surveillance state? We don't like the fact that this is a police state, meaning a cop can shoot you in the face, and that cop will likely get away with shooting you in the face. Meaning you could be in prison for smoking a plant meaning the majority of the people who are in prison are for smoking plants. Knowing, full well knowing, that Richard Nixon instituted the drug war in order to castigate blacks and hippies because he thought that they were going to be some kind of political bloc, and that ultimately they thought they were big communists, at least African Americans. Knowing that in no way changes the reality that all of these people are put in prison for smoking plants. Don't let propaganda. That's all I'm saying. And I understand that you dislike Trump. I understand that you completely hate Trump. Can you do two things at once? We dislike Donald Trump. We're completely opposed to the things that Donald Trump is doing, and for that matter, the things that the Democratic Party wants to do. By the same token, we don't like the idea that the NSA can spy and rip apart people's lives on a whim. Can we do two things at once? Can we do two things at once? Or have lefties, because of their political allegiances and the people they don't like, are the lefties now into the NSA and the CIA? I bitch about this because I think it's a big deal. I don't like this idea of a government that is allowed to spy and go into the lives of its citizens on a whim. On a whim. That needs to stop. That could be any of us. That could be any of us. People always believe that, oh, that would never be me, so it's perfectly okay. Until it's them. Until it's somebody they care about and they like. You should never let those things be in place in the first place. Let's see. Gardome, the left has been baited into all kinds of stupid shit. They are propping up Mueller and Bannon, for example. That is fucking amazing. That is fucking amazing. They're boosting spooks because of how much they hate Trump. People mistake tone for actual policy. They do. They mistake tone. Like somebody being over the top, somebody being racist or something like that. They mistake tone for the things that they actually do. Donald Trump is gross. Don't mistake me. But you would have a hard time making a case to me on how Donald Trump would be different than any other Republican that had taken that office, outside of the things he would say or the things he would tweet. You believe that the guy behind him, Pence, is any better, and you believe that Pence would do something fundamentally different than Trump. If so, what? If so, what? This is tone. This is the horrible face of America spread aloud. And I think it's a little sad that Democrats can't necessarily deal with this ugly face. Because if all honesty, if they're putting it up, you know, person to person, they were doing a lot of the same things, just in different degrees. We need a fundamental change. We need a fundamental change of the way things are. You can attack Trump, yes, but attack Trump for something real. Look, if you came to me and you said Donald Trump has business dealings in Russia, that he worked with the mob or something like that, or he was doing something through his hotels. He was like dragging currency through his hotels. I could believe that. But that's not the argument that's being made. Like, at that point, you can say, well, yeah, he's a businessman. He had all his money in his hotels. He came from the Russian mafia, et cetera, et cetera. You can make that case. That case will be a little bit more concrete, where you're showing evidence to kind of, you know, this, and we come to a particular conclusion. That's not what you're doing. You're dragging Vladimir Putin into this. You're dragging a foreign power into this. That's a big difference. And the sad part about it is you're choosing the case where you have the least amount of evidence on in order to make that case. They've depended upon media to howl about this without ever really showing anything. So the United States actually believes that this is a thing. The sad part about it, on the other side, you have the Republicans who have lost faith in the FBI and the CIA. The left, not so much. All of a sudden, these G-men are just fucking awesome. They're just fucking awesome now by the left. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. Barbara Marriage, Jamal has faced his options and is considering spitting out the blue pill finally, but I expect many more rounds of backsliding before he exits the bubble. What? The blue pill, what? Krishan, man, I'm depressed. This is all getting to be a bit much. Yeah, it's annoying. It's annoying. It really is. I think you get to this point of realizing that they're functioning in a way, but the way they're functioning... Howard Zinn, if you ever watch any of his lectures, he makes this point that we're not all one. Like, we're not all united. This is not a United States. There's always been divisions, particularly around these issues of class. But even going beyond class, issues of identity became these kind of dividing lines. But take this thing of class for the moment. There are differences. The things that certain people in a particular class go for are very different than the things that you in a particular class will want and you would go for. You look at what's taking place and you realize that neither of these are your options. At least not good options. Democrats typically make the argument that we're least worse. That's the argument that they typically make. But what does that mean? I mean, is that where you want to be, perpetually least worse? And always faced with this thing of, you have nowhere else to go, so vote Hillary, be with her, that type of stuff. At some point, it has to change. And staying with the status quo and staying with what you've always done and expecting a change is foolhardy, at best. Being willing to say no is a start. It's not the only and it's not the end-all and be-all, but it is a start. Being willing to say no and not be complicit in getting what you've always gotten. Both of these parties are hacks. Both of these parties are hacks. It's easy to say, you know, I'm going with this one because the other one is horrible. It's a little bit different to say both are hacks. Both is a choice. I know people like to ask you, it's a binary choice. Null is also a choice. True, false, null. I choose null. I choose null. I choose nothing. Depends on the language you're using. Trump supporters are just as powerless as the rest of us in terms of actual brute force. They are us. They are citizens. Garnome, that is almost poetic. That is almost poetic. And you're right, by the way. You are right. Alright, I have one more that I wanted to do. This actually wasn't the one that I wanted to do. The one I wanted to do had to do with the information that came out saying that there were more emails coming from the two parties. So, Stroitz, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and his lover, the woman that was not his wife. That part always trips me out. I call my wife lover. I've always called her that. I've called her for a long time. And I think it's because there's, if you ever listen, I know I'm on a tangent on this. If you ever listen to America, the band, and there's some of these songs where he's talking about like Together Forever and all this other stuff. But his voice comes across as being fucking epic. Like it's calm, it's deliberate, and it gets across in words and sound this kind of thing that this is beyond just a relationship. This is just beyond these two people just being together. These people are lovers. And it sounds so fucking epic. I've always called my wife lover. In this case, you have actually two lovers and embroiled in this kind of FBI thing. It's like we're FBI agents and we're lovers. And we're talking about the president being an asshole and being a fucking idiot. And we're talking about these things. And one of the things they added was that the Obama administration wanted to be briefed in detail on the information that was being, that they were involved in. Is that enough to implicate the Obama administration into whatever Republicans think this is? Like, it's one thing to say that these agents acted on their own, that they didn't want, they didn't like Trump, they didn't want to be involved with Trump, and they wanted to, had an impetus to behave a particular way, to be easier on Clinton while a little bit harder on Trump in regards to going about the case. Pushing this up to the presidency, I'll put it this way. What they said so far is not enough to implicate Obama. At least I don't think so. Republicans are going to howl about this. It's like you had a kernel of something in the Nunez memo, and you go whole hog and jump the shark in the same way Democrats jumped the shark. And now it's bringing Obama into this, and he has a role in it. Is it possible Obama had a role in it? Yes. I would imagine that he didn't want Hillary Clinton perp walked, and he definitely wanted Donald Trump not to win that election. So yeah, there's an impetus there. Just because an impetus exists doesn't necessarily mean it's taken upon. Or incentive, let me say an incentive instead of impetus. Just because an incentive is there doesn't necessarily mean an incentive is taken. But would I be shocked by it? No. Is it possible? Yes. Do they have anything to declare it be the case? No. No, they do not. At least not that I've seen so far. But I still wanted to do a story on the memo. So that would be my next one. So I'm not going to hold this one for too long. All right, guys. I am going to end this. I'm going to be back in like 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to be back in like 10 minutes. I break these up in this way because it's a pain in the ass to download the video after you do like 4 segments. It takes forever to do. And then after taking forever to do, splitting it in the right way. Now, it's easier to just do them one by one as opposed to one long show. That being said, I have been thinking about doing a live version of the show. like immoral live, like live in front of an audience. I got to be honest, I don't quite know how to pull that off yet. But I'm thinking of it two ways. One, enrichment itself, and of course having video and all that. It'll just be a real show at that point. It's just live. And in DC. Now the DC show is an interesting show. In Washington, D.C., it is illegal to sell pot. You cannot sell marijuana in D.C. It is, however, permissible to smoke. Now, the Republicans in D.C. have been against making any adjustments to the ruling. So, the workaround has been, you go to a shop, you buy a ticket, and with your ticket, the shop gives you, it just gives it to you, at its own expense, a joint. A welcoming home joint. So this is why the DC show interests me the most. This seems to be, I think that has the makings of a fucking awesome show and performance. But yeah, they've been started doing that. So somebody would have like a birthday party, and they would say, hey, it's $10 to get in. You can get this joint, and in getting this joint, you're free to not take this. But who the fuck doesn't take it? You're coming to it purely for that reason. So yeah, I'm thinking about doing a live show on that. That should be interesting. Marta K. Thank you, Marta. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Yeah, you can bring it, Thomas. You can bring it. Yeah, they've been having, Washington, D.C. is trying to make moves on it. Richmond, no. Washington, D.C., yes. Marta, oh, by the way, Marta's thing is called Thank You. That's her thing. Guys, I appreciate you guys, either through Patreon or Super Cash. It's absolutely appreciated when you give. Sometimes I miss it early on because I'm doing my thing. I'm doing my spiel. I'm like shaking and moving. And I'm not necessarily looking at the screen. But if I miss it, and I don't think I've been missing much, but if I do miss it, thank you. You appreciate it. When you do Super Cash, leave a message. I like the messages. I think they're interesting. Let's see. Jamal wants to be the next Jank. Is that my goal? Gardner, you should do that but with 2 or 3 guests. Maybe. I like doing guests one-on-one because I like the interviews. I like to be able to talk to the person. But maybe. You should interview Nina Turner. Don't you know I would love to interview Nina Turner? I would love to interview Nina Turner. Do live call-ins first before going live shows. Oh, Jay Scott. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Look, I am in Aries moon, man. I am not good with limitation. I am switching positions. I'm switching to a new job. And to using something more part-time so it allows more time for this. And my wife, we were talking about a few positions, and she was like, you don't do limitation well. Now, the reason she's saying this, because I'm like, well, I could come home. I would be able to do... Okay, there's 2 things. My wife and I are talking about traveling, meaning getting remote positions so we can travel pretty much anywhere. Both of us like to travel. I more so, this is more driven by me. But we plan for this year to be able to just go gallivanting about the world. In order to do this, you need a position that would allow you to go gallivanting about the world. And that's essentially what we've been doing. I've taken this into account with the idea of getting the position that's part-time that would allow it and allow time for this because I want to grow this. So, but that being said, she was like, yeah, you don't do limitation well. And she was trying to be really polite with us. Her point is, what you're going to do is what you've been doing. You come home from work and you spend like 4 or 5 hours doing a show. And like between the research and the shows and performing all this stuff, she's like, there is no way. You'll be up to like 2 in the morning, essentially doing what you do now. Like I've always said that if I did this full time, I would probably only do it during certain periods of the day. She has completely disbelieved me on this, and it's like, there's no way. Ultimately, what you would do is what you're doing now. You spend most of your day working on the videos. She might be right. I mean, she might be right. She probably is right. But whatever. Whatever. Do my fucking show. So guys, I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. That being said, I would love to interview Nina Turner. I've talked to Nina Turner. I didn't have my camera with me. We were at the People's Summit. And I was asking about Sanders. I was curious about Sanders. I was like, you know, I don't think she cares if I mention it. I essentially asked her, what's going on with your boy? That's what I wanted to know. I didn't know that sounds like common nice, but it's like, what is going on with Sanders? Why is he propping up this party? Why is he doing this? This is the same question I asked Nick Bronner when I first met him. This is the same question I asked those people who were doing, people for Sanders, all this stuff. I asked the exact same question. What is going on with Bernie Sanders? What the fuck is he doing? Why is he supporting these people who cheated him? Why is he supporting people who cheated him? Why is he not calling out corruption? Why is he working in cahoots with this corrupt party? And she shook her head, and she says he believes that he could change it. He believes he could change it. So that's her position on it. That's her opinion. Nina Turner has feigned a third party. That's I don't know if that's her getting tough about it, saying we are not going to support something if you're not necessarily going to pursue a particular interest, or if it's her threatening with a stick. I don't know which one it is. I hope she's being genuine when she actually says we need something else. We need something to represent workers. And these organizations get serious about abandoning that party. I'm talking about labor. You've been destroyed all across the United States. You're shitting me. Why are you still supporting this party that has allowed that to take place? Do you know Jeremy Corbyn is in London? Jeremy Corbyn supports or is supported by labor. When labor issues come up, they have a mouthpiece. They have somebody who has their unequivocal support in the political establishment. Can labor honestly say that to be true with Democrats? And if you can't say that's true with Democrats, why do you support Democrats? Why? It's like, yeah. It's like Palestinians running to a mosque to rebuff Israel. That's what it's like. You're running to a goblin in order to fight, the beast, being the Republican Party. You built your own Godzilla in order to fight the other King Kong. I understand why you're going to the party in this way. I'm just saying, don't you want more? And has that strategy made gains for you? That's what I'm asking. You've been destroyed all throughout the United States. Has it had gains for you? Of the candidates, you had one guy who was on the lines with you. That was Bernie Sanders. You had one guy who was making that case for you. That was Bernie Sanders. So why are you supporting a party that doesn't support you? That's my question to labor. That's my fundamental question to labor. I understand Republicans are horrible at some point. Is not your support just enabling? Like, at some point, do you realize that, oh my God, this guy is a crack-addicted alcoholic? And me cooking lunch for him, me helping him up when he falls down the stairs. He slaps me, he kicks me, but I think he loves me deep down. I think if the world was a different place, if people had ponies and rainbows, that he would treat me better, that he wouldn't be this crack-addicted alcoholic who beats me. He has a good soul. He has a good soul. So you cook him lunch, you cook him dinner, you take him to the gambling establishments. He cheats on you. He finds some desperate woman and he cheats on you. And you watch him cheat on you because it gets him off that he can cheat on you and can still be stupid enough to support him. At which point do you say, I'm done? Do you grow a political spine and say, I'm done? I'm no longer enabling. I'm no longer helping with the meals. I'm no longer going out and getting him his groceries and his supplies. I'm done. And you walk. You grow a fucking spine and a backbone and you walk. At which point do you do that? At the point at which you do that will be the point in which one or two things happens. Either that party is destroyed or the party fundamentally changes. In either way, you would have some vehicle that you can create that would make your own ends. The way you're going now, not so much. Not so much. Sanders is the only socialist in the United States. I don't know if he's a socialist. Jamal is describing himself. Oh, okay. It's Jamal describing Bernie again. Yeah. It depends on what it is. I don't know which one you're talking about. Hoodie Woman, Louisiana. So what's wrong with being a socialist? There's nothing wrong with being a socialist. As I said, Jamal wants to be the next Hannah Cranston or possibly Emma. I like Emma. There's nothing wrong with Emma. Leave Emma alone. Leave Emma alone. Leave Emma alone. Terry Robinson, enjoy your work. Terry Robinson, yes, you should enjoy your work. You should enjoy your work. You should not be miserable at your job. And unfortunately, most of us are alienated in the labor that we do. So yes. Yes. Corey isn't neoliberal. That's nice. Yeah, that is nice. Bernie is an abusive crackhead. Bernie Sanders is not an abusive... Under normal circumstances, Bernie Sanders is not an abusive crackhead. These deep state Democrats are making Republicans look like the better evil. No, they're not. They're not. They're not. I'm sorry. They're not. Steve in Northern Virginia, they are not. Look, we have this weird thing as human beings, and I guess it's not weird. It's just to some degree it's how we are in this particular system, where we think if not one, the other. Like it's binary, one or the other. It is difficult to break that paradigm and say neither. To say both, neither are in our interests. There is no good guy, bad guy dynamic. Both are bad guys. It's one thing to say this is a worse bad guy than the other, but to acknowledge that both are bad guys. That's what I'm getting at. It's not one or the other. It's not Democrats making Republicans look better. It's none of that. Both are fucking horrible. Democrats may say certain things and be less rapacious in their policies. So you get these, momentary things of normalizing Republican policy. But if you're talking about actually getting something done in regards to healthcare, education, in regards to childcare, meaning helping people when they have kids, having something of a state that actually looks for the human being as opposed to protecting the profits of others, then yeah, you're not going to get that out of either party. You have a climate change, global, catastrophic climate change, and neither party does anything about it. Republican Party just says doesn't exist. God takes care of that. Now, in saying that, they allow themselves an out. We don't have to do anything for it because it doesn't exist. Democratic position is problematic. But it's problematic. Be honest. Like this, if you're not for a Green New Deal and if you're not for reshaping our energy markets based on the science that is available to us, saying that this is a catastrophic problem, this is a problem that devastates societies. If you as a Democrat is pushing for somebody who's pushing fracking, like where do I go with that? That seems dishonest to me. To say we're going to push out all this oil, we're going to push out fracking, we're going to go all over across the board approach, we're going to open up these pipelines, that's what we're going to do. I'm the Democratic Party. But we're signing on to the Paris Agreement. You understand that it goes beyond the Paris Agreement. That the changes that they're talking about, meaning that changes that scientists are saying that are going to take place to this planet based on our behavior, will be catastrophic to life on this planet. Your Paris Agreement doesn't go far enough for something that's supposed to be catastrophic. There's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet, and you're playing piddlywinks. And I'm just saying, just on one issue alone, both parties are incapable of doing anything about it. You can go down the line. Their view of reality is fundamentally the same, with minor degrees of difference. Because you only have two parties in this country, you think of those differences as being massive and major things. They are not. They're not. These parties are functionally the same at the core. Jamal, I disagree with you about many things, including Corbyn, but I have tremendous respect for your integrity. You have him on your platform, a rare breed of honesty amongst others. Much love, bro. Oh, thank you, Bob Robertson. Yeah, man, I don't expect people to agree with everything I say. Oh, you don't like Corbyn. You don't like Corbyn. Fair enough. Fair enough. Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, I like Jeremy Corbyn. Nah, man, I don't... That's not what I shoot for. I was telling somebody why I like saying progressive so much, and they mentioned the Las Vegas thing. They was like, yeah, dude, but she was talking about Las Vegas. And my point to him was, the reason I like saying progressive is not because I agree with everything that she says. I agree with the integrity. Like, I agree with where it comes from. This thing of you're putting your stake in the ground on this kind of humanistic pursuits of, I'm going to call a spade a spade. If I think this is this, I'm going to say that I think this is this. It's not going to be changed or altered based on some of the influence that's pushing me a particular way. I respect the hell out of that. It's not an easy thing. I respect the hell out of it. I don't have to agree with everything. I just need to know that where she's coming from is in a good place. And most of the time I think she is. So yeah. Yeah. Debbie won't come on Jamal's show because his audience is so packed with hillbots, burnouts, and Frankensteiners. You think she's running away? Oh, I don't know if that's a hit on her, me or her. I mean, look, man, you would have Democrats who go on Fox News. You're saying that Debbie's scared to come on the show. I don't think Debbie's scared to go anywhere. That woman's a fucking force of nature. The prayer change was great in that countries finally said the words climate change. After that, not so much, right? It's like you have scientists saying we need trillions of dollars across the world to try to avert climate change. Now, understand the ridiculousness of the statement. We need trillions of dollars to avert world catastrophe. Dollars are not real. They're not real. Look, I don't mean to scream. Dollars are not real. You, the planet, those things are real. And you're talking to me about dollars for something that's world-changing, meaning the world can be changed dramatically for human life based on this particular factor. And boil it down. An asteroid is going to hit the planet. And the equivalent of $1. The dollars aren't real. That asteroid is damn real. The planet itself that's going to hit is damn real. The people that it kills is damn real. Those dollars are not. In this equation, the one thing that's not real are the dollars. The resources are real. The materials that you can use in order to avert that disaster is real. The skill and acumen that you can apply to avert that disaster is real. The money is not. The lunacy of this, to be having a conversation on dollars when we're told by the scientists who build our bombs and rockets and planes and buildings and all this other stuff that we depend on them on, those guys. The lunacy of this is that we're having this conversation about profits and cash when they're saying that the world is at stake. That's it. I just find that to be an amazing conversation that's being had. It's like, hey, the world is at stake. Yeah, calm down with that. We'll put some money towards it. We'll throw some imaginary stuff towards it. That's the lunacy of this. Yeah, that's just lunacy, man. Yeah, capitalism with its greatest inequity. Yeah, inequity is fucking amazing. Looking forward to hear you and Debbie on Bernie, although I'm a little afraid she will best you, although you're a damn good debater. Good luck with that, and thanks for the channel. Yeah, I think Gardner said something like, I was going to get shredded or something like that. I think I can hold my own. I think I'll be okay. 989-898-9897. Jamal, thoughts on Hard Bastard only being okay with people with your economic viewpoint as long as you don't gain power? What? Thoughts on Hard Bastard only being okay with people with your economic views as long as you... That's funny. That's funny. You're saying it's like, I'm okay with them in thought and theory, but not so much if they gain power. That's his point. That's his point of view. I mean, what can I say about it? I think he's wrong, but what can I say about it? It's like, look, you can have the world any way you want the world. Flat fact. Providing you're willing to deal with the consequences of the way you've arranged yourselves. It's like playing chess. Yes, I can play e4 as long as I'm okay with the consequences of playing a game like e4. Yes, I can move my knight to this position. Yes, I can, can focus on this strategy as long as I'm okay with dealing with the outcome of this strategy. It has to logically make sense. The energy has to flow in a particular way in order to sustain it. It's like anything. It's like any engine. They had to arrange the pieces in a way and give it a certain amount of, oomph to get it to do what they wanted to do in a consistent way. Human beings are no different. Human beings are no different. We've come up with a capitalistic system. And in that capitalistic system, there are certain vagaries that are going to be resulting from the system being the way it is. Human beings will always exist in some kind of fabric of something. Like there's no situation where you're talking about a human being outside the confines of everything. Like he's in a void. It doesn't exist. If we're having a conversation about human behavior, you have to add in what is the environment of that human being to understand what that behavior is going to be. What are the incentives and the drives in that particular environment? Now, I would argue that's somewhat of a flat fact. If you're raised on Vulcan, you'll probably act like a Vulcan. If you were raised in Japan, ancient feudal Japan, you would probably be carrying fans around, and there probably would be samurais walking around. You would probably take on a certain social code. As long as it's consistent with itself, meaning however it's arranged, there are going to be certain vagaries, there are going to be certain problems. There is no utopia. There are going to be things that work well, there are going to be things that don't. The question becomes, what are you willing to be okay with in the organization that you've accustomed yourself to, or the arrangement that you've enacted? In capitalism, in our case, we're okay with poverty, we're okay with war, we're okay with people going without the resources that they need, we're okay with people working jobs that they absolutely hate, we're okay with giving a small percent a large amount of the spoils while everyone else suffers. These are the things that we're okay with. Capitalists would like to focus on the top part, the 1%. Now, we bribe a certain percentage of people in this process because we need that certain percentage of people to actually continue in the process itself. Meaning we need a section of people to build things, bombs and boats and ships and equipment and all this other stuff. So some of that cash at the top that's exploited off of the people and their labor is bribed to those people towards the bottom. The people who are bribed, for the most part, live their lives. They consider it their lives. They consider that, I've earned, and all this other stuff, and they go about their lives, not caring about the fact that, 60% of the world lives off of like $10 a day. If you're going to go with a capitalistic model, you have to accept the consequences of that model. That's all. And the argument I make is there a better arrangement? Is there a way to arrange ourselves as human beings that doesn't necessarily have this much level of poverty, that don't give more and more to the very top 1%? Jeff Bezos has $90 billion fucking dollars, or $100 billion. Think about that. One human being has assets and resources of $100 billion. There's still people who don't have health care. There's still people in massive debt for college loans. I am one of them. There's still people sleeping on the streets. He has $100 billion. Now, you would have to explain to me why that is a good use of resources to give one human being that much money while other people are starving and without. I understand the argument that's often made about meritocracy, like this person was meritorious, the other person was not, because this person was somehow meritorious to a degree of $100 billion. Look, anybody, or a lot of people, not anybody, can come up with a stupid human trick that allow themselves to make a large amount of cash in a particular system. It is not this kind of indication of merit. It's an indication of them coming up with a stupid human trick that would allow them to make a lot of cash in our particular system. Whatever skill that they were born with, whatever condition they had, they were able to utilize it to come up with some kind of engine of creation that would allow them to make more cash. In our system, good for them. The problem with that is it's completely detached from relative value. There should never be a situation where there's somebody with $100 billion in your society. How did one person even get $100 billion? And why is that person even okay having $100 billion? I mean, that's an amazing fucking thing that a society allows something like this. So yeah, I mean, understand. I guess my point is, these are aspects of the system itself. And it's systemic. It is not one particular individual. I'm bringing out Bezos because I'm trying to make this point of the absurdity of one human being having this much money when other people starve and when the overwhelming majority of the world barely have a pot to piss in. Many of those paid, I think it was like 30%, lived off $2 a day. This guy's walking away with $100 billion. So yeah, I challenge the system because I think the system is bogus. Like who gave the first person the land? Explain that to me. At which point was somebody here to give one human being, say, hey, I'm going to give you all this land. All of the land that was taken by blood and through iron. Essentially, people were shot, murdered, killed, and that land was stolen. Somewhere along the way, history goes on, and processes are put in place that would allow people to essentially lay claim to something that was stolen from somebody else. Now, as a human being, I have to look at this, and I have to come to the conclusion that everything that was there was stolen. That's the first point. And do we really want a system that would allow one person to gain that much while other people are in the system without? My answer would be no. My answer would be we could arrange ourselves in a different way. The question becomes, what is that different way? And there are other modes of living. Now, people will say socialism, people say communism, people say anarchism, these type of modes. I've mentioned the Venus Project, the study of a cashless society. I don't care what the system is. There's certain things that you need to meet in regards to your goals. If you meet those goals, I shut the fuck up, I go home. I'm not on a hard edge for any particular system, if that makes sense. I like the idea of the Venus Project because I think you get rid of a lot of the issues that you have in your world, in your society, using the Venus Project. But I have questions about the Venus Project, which is why I'm eager to talk to Roxanne Meadows in regards to how do you accomplish certain things. How do you transition from the way we are to something like that? Does it all have to crash before we come to some conclusion on, okay, maybe we could organize ourselves in a different way? No, I mean, hard bastard has his opinions, I have mine. I don't need people to share my point of view. I don't need it. So, I really don't care what Bernie said. Easy, I care what he does. Agreed. Jonathan Melton, the Venus Project. Yeah, I like the Venus Project. Terry Robinson, capitalists are interested in profit and not in working masses. Hence, we don't have things that democratic socialism and Europe do. That's a good point, by the way. Everything in a capitalistic society is done purely for the sake of profit. How can you trust somebody if their only aim is to make a profit off of you? Think about the things that you can't do because they need to have some kind of profit motive associated with it. You walk to a building, the company opens the door. He's only opened the door not because he's a good guy, but because he's being paid to open the door for you. Everything is done for profit. Everything is a profit motive. And this goes to workers. If I can put a robot in your place, I am firing you. You no longer have a job. If I can get a software program to do what you do, you no longer have a job. Sorry, this is a capitalistic enterprise. My job in this is to make money, not to give you a job. The lunacy of all of the things, it's like we're giving all these guys tax cuts. That's not going to come to you. Those guys are going to say thank you and put that money in their pocket. They only start companies if they can make a profit off that company. They only hire employees if you can make a profit off of something that employee is doing. They're not doing this stuff for social need. They're not doing it for social need. The whole pretext or the whole concept of technological unemployment comes from this idea that companies are like, this guy wants $15 an hour. Fuck it, we can put in a robot. That robot is not going to bitch. That robot is going to be there 24 hours a day. That robot is going to pump out more of the particular product that we want. The world is great. Except for the fact that you've just fired the guy who was producing that, who was getting an income, and now that guy no longer has the money to buy your product. Imagine that amplified. More and more jobs are going to be replaced just through the natural flow of technology. More people are going to be unemployed through the natural flow of technology. Right now, Alphabet, Google's company, is in a lawsuit. The lawsuit is over automated cars. Now, understand what's taking place. Think of all the taxi drivers. Think of all the Uber drivers. Think of all the drivers for Lyft. What happens to those drivers when technology is they put the technology into the car that allows automated driving? Hundreds of thousands of people lose their jobs. A car comes to your house. It waits for you. It's automated. It takes you from point A to point B without a driver. It goes back, fills itself up without a driver. An automated process will probably be there to fill itself up. And it comes back and goes and does its job again. What happens when those cars are turned into electric cars, where it's not even a thing of needing to go anywhere to get a refill? Hell, they may have solar panels at that point. They may go somewhere, get an electric charge, do some kind of electric plating, and they go about their way. That's great for the company. Those companies are going to make a massive amount of profits. They can cut the prices of the cars themselves in regards to what people pay, and those cars can, for the most part, go anywhere they want. Not to mention the infrastructure that's going to be created with the electric cars. But you've lost a lot of jobs. You've lost a lot of jobs. People have families. People have houses. The companies themselves don't really care about that. That's not their concern. Their concern is to maximize their profits any way they can to maximize their profits. When Walmart had a dead peasants insurance. So when people who work on Walmart, if they die, Walmart put out an insurance policy in order to get money that they would have done, meaning the product care that they would have done if they were alive. So Bob gets cancer, Bob dies. Bob worked at Walmart, unfortunately for Bob. Walmart has an insurance policy on Bob. Walmart says that Bob would have exerted work that equal to, let's say, $50,000 over the course of X amount of time. So Walmart has insurance on that. And Walmart gets a check based on Bob's dead body for the money. Corporations are just machines. Their job is to maximize profit. It has nothing to do with social benefit. I mean, so... Oh, not you, Robertson. Not you, Rob. Not you, Bob. It was another Bob. It was another Bob. It was another Bob. I'm sorry, guys. It wasn't you, Bob Ramirez, or Bob Robertson. My bad. My bad. I usually use Bob Barker. And so Bob is the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah. That's fair enough. My bad, Bob. My bad. When we're no longer needed by the rich, we will live in hovels, starving. I get animated about this because my feeling is that the red rabbit is right. Your power as workers and labor is now, is 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Is being able to stand up to a corrupt political establishment saying, no, we will not comply, and getting something that represents your interests. The Democratic Party does not. The Republican Party does not. Something that represents your interests. That's my whole spiel. That's my whole point. It starts by being able to say no, not repeating the same thing over again and expecting a different result. So, all right, guys, I'm going to end this. This was not supposed to go an hour. This was supposed to go like 10, 15 minutes. So I do have one after this, probably showing about 10 to 15 minutes. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. And beyond Patreon, guys, I really appreciate the Super Cash thing. I think I am going to try automated calls in the next one. So, if you have my Patreon account, I think that very first video gives the number to dial. And so in the next video, definitely try, and we'll see if we can do the call-in show. So, this is my test case. Alright, guys. Thank you. Y'all have a good one.